Hey guys, Matt, IronTrap Garage, and today we are working on the Mercury project. We've been doing a ton of videos on chopping this. We've been breaking it down and showing a bunch of the steps to give it a little bit more of some technical content for you guys that have been asking. So if you haven't, make sure you go back and watch those videos. We've been doing a bunch of them in succession. So we're starting to get to the fun stuff, so to speak. The sail panels are the next two things that we're making for both sides. The sail panels are basically this area over this C-pillar, so to speak, and this is kind of an important part with getting the flow right and everything in these cars. We've already established the silhouette of the car and the flow of the roof by doing one of the previous videos. I stretched the gutter area here, which stretched the window opening and got this all flowing. We got the roof flowing in the right direction, and then last time I made these corner pieces, which kind of give us a direction to go with our sail panels. So I've cut out a blank of metal that's flat here, and we're going to start shaping up our sail panels. So we're going to bring this into shape and try and get this to match this area here. We're kind of just filling in the blanks, which is nice. We've already made all these pieces, so really this piece it's going to tell us what it needs to be, which I think will make it a little easier for shaping it rather than starting with shaping this piece first or earlier in the process. So the other thing I'm going to do is I've decided, because we reshaped up in this gutter area here and the window opening, we've reshaped this and kind of mellowed out the window opening, but we didn't reshape up here at the roof. So this area here over where we kind of mellowed out the curve has a little too much shape in it. So there's a couple ways you could attack that. You could, of course, put some pie cuts in the panel here. That'll let it kind of flatten out, and then you could weld those pie cuts up. But I decided, since we're already making a panel, I'm just going to cut up a little further into that and make our panel have that shape. So rather than having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 welds on that corner, we'll just do the perimeter and have the the 3 welds around the perimeter. So that's the plan. Again, as always, hopefully we don't throw away too much metal and we can get this made. And this is really going to give the look of the car after we start getting these shaped and cleat in place. I've been dying to make these pieces, so let's get started. So like I've been teaching you a little bit with the wheel. So when it's slipping like this, it's not doing anything. That's how you can tell if you're stretching or not. So you keep tightening the wheel, and see, I'm still not. So now it's barely slipping, so it might be stretching just a tiny bit. So I'm gonna go just a tiny bit there. And I gotta follow this line. So just catch. You're kind of just keeping it from drooping. If I didn't have you here and I let it droop, that end would get a bend in it from the weight.
You said that
Eventually this thing will get enough strength that it could almost hold itself, but in the beginning it's like you don't want to put a crease in the panel by it's something that took me a while. Stuff that you do in the beginning of shaping a panel or doing sheet metal work, when you're careless, you'll fight it the rest of the way through the piece because you ran a piece of dirt through or let the panel droop. Course, your end, and isn't steering it enough. I'm just trying to, fill in those areas. It's starting to get a little bit of curvature now. All right, a few passes through the wheel. I don't know if it picks it up on the camera, but this piece is getting some shape in it like we want in the center. So I drew this line, and this is kind of what we're shooting for like the middle of our bend, or like the light line as they call it. This is basically like the center of the bend kind of flows down, so we didn't just make it go straight through the panel. I have it curved like this, and that's why we're going to have the panel will help lay in, and it'll kind of center our bend or a shape right in the center of where it was in the roof there. And then when it comes down into here, it's going to be hopefully centered roughly in the bend here. So with this shape, center of the bend here, or for the most part, should be centered in that light line, and just follow it up through. So that's what we're aiming for. It's sometimes difficult when you're wheeling it to follow this curve and get it flowed in real good, but just that little bit of wheeling, it's already starting to take the rough shape. So probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep wheeling it some, and maybe help it a little bit with my knee to get the shape established. We're just doing form by doing that, but that'll help me in the wheel get that shape kind of rolling. But going in the right direction, and then we'll start blending all the shapes together. After we get this kind of established, we could start shaping out in here and getting it to match what's going on in here. Just using our radius gauges and everything, and try and get it to look good and fit together. All right, so got the panel roughed in yesterday. We just worked a little bit on it and came in again today to start refining this panel. It's definitely a lot more difficult than I initially had planned. There's a lot going on. So got the shape in. I just wanted to start getting some clecos in place so that we can continue to put this piece on as we refine it. Pretty much the same every time. So I snuck a cleco in the rear window area down in this corner. I had to move one over in the roof section here just because it goes underneath of this panel. I want to leave extra material. So and then here added one up into the roof section. We ended up cutting up into the roof section a little more because if you remember, we stretched this area here, which made it more of a gentle curve. So the roof followed suit from the factory, so it was more of a steep shape here for poor way of describing it, but had more shape to the roof right here, and we wanted actually a little more mellow. So in this area over where we stretched it. So it's going to be about the same shape right where we butt weld it, but it's going to blend out and go into a more gentle, mellow shape because everything kind of flows and isn't as bulbous as it used to be. So I'm fairly happy with how it's all flowing together. There's a transition in here where I'm going to have to cut away this big section of this piece I made last time. But you can see our panel that I made is sitting against the original metal right here that comes off of the drip rail. And we're going to basically kind of cut away. The tricky part with chopping these cars is there's a hard line here originally that went around, and you're trying to turn it into a gentle, soft line. Some people just make it completely disappear. Some people just make a hard line that runs all the way out to here, and that's it, and then everything else is just kind of like float out. Because I'm making it more difficult, but I'm trying to make this kind of soft body line that runs around, gets soft, and then in here it's going to get a little sharper, and then it's going to go really sharp right into that section like it did from the factory. So somewhere in here, I haven't decided yet, I'm going to have to pretty much cut this piece off or section it in, and it's going to go to this portion where it's sitting right on the quarter, and it's going to be that hard line. So once the panel fits better, we'll address that. I'm probably going to get this thing sitting a lot better before I even think about what I'm going to do there. But the goal is to eventually, you can see where these two pieces, ideally that's what we want, two pieces just naturally touch together, blend together, so when we make this cut right here, this piece will come up or that piece will go down and everything will flow together really nice. But these areas where there's a gap here, this needs some more work. It's a little hollow in here, so it needs to be brought up a little more shape right in this crown light line area. So I'm going to carefully work that on the planishing hammer. Some of it is just waviness from rolling it on the wheel. There's just little waves in it, and I'm just going to try and smooth it all out, bring it up just a little bit from basically here to here. We got our radius gauges here that I was checking, and it is showing that it's just a little low in there. So work that a little bit and try not to make the panel turn into a potato chip by shaping the wrong thing the wrong way. Short there. I might have to cut this back into here. All right, so I've been working back and forth with the planishing hammer and adjusting everything, and we got it pretty close. So the part that I was struggling with a little bit was in here. It's how we were going to blend this kind of soft body line into the factory. Like there's like literally it was just a metal sat on top and was, you know, had that pinch weld around. So what I did is I cut away a little bit here, and you can notice I cut a lot of this out. I made it bigger than needed and then knew we were gonna trim it away. So we trimmed a lot of that off, and we started to just gently roll this piece in. I'm going to have to make a little piece here, but the extra that we cut off there, I think I can blend it all in. So that'll be as just not knowing where I was going with that. So we're gonna eventually, this is going in the right direction here, where this body line is gonna flow into that. So we're kind of changing the profile of the bottom of the roof without changing the whole side of the car. And then this area here, like, I don't know if I mentioned or not, there's a lead seam that's in here that I just know from other people doing these cars that we will need to get rid of all that lead, and it's usually a mess in there. So I have that piece made a little bigger. We're gonna have to kind of shape that piece to match this piece and everything once we get a little further. But what I have is these shapes here are kind of blended together. You can see this is all tight up against. The clecos are in there to kind of position everything, and they don't have like crazy force on them. They are pulling it together a little bit, but there's a couple little areas here where I know eventually we will need to, once we trim the metal and flow all these pieces together, they'll fit pretty good. But overall, got a pretty good shape in it. I checked it with my radius gauge here. I don't know where the correct one is, but I basically took my radius gauge and started with the shape that we have here and ran it down, and shape is staying pretty consistent. Some little waves and things, but it's no huge bellies or panels not popping and acting crazy. So overall, getting a good shape and flow, I think. So what I'm going to do next is I want to trim this and butt weld this piece to this piece next, so that this section, whole sail panel into the catwalk, is one piece. It's going to be easier for me to adjust these shapes so that they flow together really good on the planishing hammer off of the car. I just don't think I can get it done very good when it's on the car all welded in. So that's what I'm going to do here. That's why I added some clecos to pull it all together. I got one of these Harbor Freight, you know, welding seam clamps that's shoved in there. It's pulling everything tight and level and good, so that when we make this scribe here and cut, everything's gonna, you know, fit together pretty good when it's tack welded. So that's what we're gonna do, start cutting apart our pieces and making them one. All right, so I'll talk a little bit on this, making this piece. The other side we didn't talk about a lot, just had Evan helping me some. But basically for the beginning of this process, I start with the English wheel because if you could see, there is some lines I drew. That's basically the center of that bend. And as you can see, it has like a curvature in it. So we need to be able to follow that. So for me, it's a little easier in the English wheel in the beginning to rough this shape in. So what I start to do, we know that I have my radius gauges and it's roughly like a number 12 radius gauge that we went down through, and we're trying to bring that shape up to. So what I usually, in this instance, now that I know what I'm doing, the other side I was going very slow and starting with a 12 or a 24 lower wheel and just bringing the shape up because I didn't know what we needed exactly or where I wanted to end up, so I went very slow and controlled. This we kind of know that we want to be at a number 12, so I can just, get it up there very quickly. So I start with a sharper or steeper lower wheel. So this is a number 5. So starting with a 5 because it's going to stretch quicker, so I crank the wheel up, the pressure, not super tight, but a little tighter than I normally would, just to bring that pressure up. What it's going to do is make a bunch of lines in the panel because it's just quickly raising it. We know that with the planishing hammer, I can come back and smooth all that out later, but we're just trying to pump that shape up. Another way that people tend to do that is they do it in a sandbag, and they'll pound the shape in all through here, and then wheel it out and smooth it. So since this isn't a real crazy shape, I didn't want to pound it out with the sandbag. I was just going to do it in the wheel. So I've already got real good crown in the panel here, and it already has a ton of strength in it. So I usually, like this time I had Steve help me for the first couple passes through the wheel because it was floppy, and after that I can just do it all myself because the panel holds itself with the strength of it. So like I said, we started with a 5. Now that I have that shape in, I'm going to start working on either side of the crown to try and bring the rest of it up, and then we need to start creating a curve in the panel the other way where it needs to wrap down. So we're going to go to our 12 wheel here. I'm going to start rolling around all that. And this is just my process. I'm not by any means a pro, just the way I am achieving this. So I'm rolling it in the wheel this way because it tends to give it, whichever way you roll it in the wheel over the top of the wheel, it shapes it more that way. So now we need this panel to bend, basically like flex like that in the center, how it bends around a little bit because of the pinch of the panel. So I need to start stretching all in here to kind of help with some of that. So put a wheel like the shape that we want in it, and we're going to wheel it. So just taking a little bit of the curvature this way out of it, just with my hand, and that'll help curve it the other way. Got our 12 here. So even that's still, it's perfect there. I'm going to take this corner piece off for now. just so I can get the shape of that better because everything's too big. So the corner piece will fit this piece at the very end. So for now, I'm just gonna leave it off and get the shape flowing to what we have for the roof already. So way quicker already because I knew what I needed to do here. So this needs to come up like that, there. But what I'm having now is the existing roof. I didn't show this on the other side, but this crown in the roof right here where we extended the gutter is basically has too much shape in it. It's too steep, as I would say. So we need to cut that out there because we're gonna graft it in here and we can get the more gradual shape with our new panel. But right now it's hitting on that because the shape doesn't really match. So I need to cut more of the roof out. So I'm going to move another one of these support bars in, support the roof right in here so that it doesn't droop and give us a false reading. So I'm going to cut that out. Then I can start laying this panel in, and I'll just cut it a little short of what we need so that I can overlap the two materials and cleco them in place. But back here it's hitting because this roof right here was meant to go very steep right there for the original roof shape, and we're getting more of a beautiful flowing shape. So, oops, get the cutoff grinder out, chip the paint, and cut some more metal off. All right, so got this these two pieces tacked in place here, and what I wanted to show is probably saw a shot ago. I tacked this and then I put it on the planishing hammer and went over it. So I'm using I think it's a number 12 radius die through here. Kind of matches what's up top and seems to flow pretty well. So to be honest, I was being a little bit lazy with my fitment here. It all laid together, but they weren't stretched the same. So when you cut them off and you start tacking them, they end up like V'ing together. So we get like a belly in here where this is diving in and this is diving in. So I got the tacks in and got it as flush as I could, but it had a little bit of a belly in it. And if I would have just welded it, that belly would have got way worse and been a lot harder to finish out. So I put in a planishing hammer, didn't touch anything on the welds and just smashed them down. It's a nice thing with having a little bit better tools these days. I'm able to actually smash the TIG welds down and make some flat so we're not grinding the crap out of them. Once I get this all welded, I probably will on the back side and the top just knock any weird highs off of the welds, but not grind the crap out of them, just enough. But yeah, now I got the shape kind of flowing. I got to weld in here and get that all fit up, but everything's still, it's still roughed in, but it's getting better. But this was fitting well enough that I could tack it, planish it up. Now I'll weld it on the car just to make sure everything stays in position, and then I'll sand the welds, planish it again, get it all flowing, and then we got to go back into all this and just bring all this shape up just a tiny bit. I'm really close, it's maybe like a 1/16 or so underneath of the radius gauge, sliding it down. But I knew that I'm going to have to do a bunch of work in here, which is going to then stretch. So there's no sense in getting it perfect up here when we're that close and then having to do it again, go back over it. I'm scared of overstretching it. So I'm going to weld this, keep moving forward, and almost be done our second sail panel. Can't wait. All right, so I got the second sail panel all shaped up, tack welded and welded it like that little bit I showed you guys. And then again, I just ran it through the planishing hammer using my radius gauge, checking everything, and everything is really, really close. In fact, I probably like this side better than the other. And that's always the thing, every one you do, every one of these pieces, when you make two of them, usually the second one, you're a lot quicker at, you figure things out. So this one in the side where it wraps around, I put a little more shape in it. So I'm probably eventually gonna, off camera, on the other side, just do the same thing. And by putting a little more shape in, we're getting to the point where the radius gauge is only like, 16th or, whatever, that I wanna raise it up. Very little, but when you look at either side, you notice that kind of stuff, and you're like, oh, I like that one better. And you start checking the radius gauge, oh, I put a little, just a tiny bit more shape in it. So there's a lot of that fine tuning. You can drive yourself nuts with trying to make things perfect in bare metal. This car in particular and this job, I'm trying to push myself a little more, like I've said in all these videos. So some of this work that I'm doing or things I'm talking about is kind of for most, it really is unnecessary 99% of the time, because it's probably quicker to fix it with filler, and that's what most people do. But again, just trying to push myself and challenge myself and making things a little bit better, and it's working out. So now that I got those two pieces welded together, clecoed in, both sides are good, really happy with how it's all flowing. You can finally see the shape of the roof. I'll get out of the shot here for you. Check it out. Killer. So it's really, really flowing good. The one thing I did notice is right up in here, I know it's hard to see, right up in the top of the roof there where the original roof and the new sail panel meet, I probably should have cut it even a little further forward. It still looks like it's not going downhill enough yet. So I think I'm gonna actually put some relief cuts in that when we do the final welding of the roof. It's just very minor, but I know when I weld that, it's gonna create this little like peak that is gonna be hard to flatten out. So I think what I'm gonna do is put like 2 or 3 little relief cuts right in that corner of that bend there, and that will let it kind of lay down and relax, and then I could planish it all smooth and all that stuff. But that's not something right now that needs to be addressed. We can address that when we do the final welding of the roof. Basically what I'm trying to do is weld all the pieces together and have one giant roof section that I have clecoed and screwed in place so that we know right where it goes. We can just click that whole roof section basically on, and then do our big perimeter welds, and that's going to be like a day or two of welding it and then finishing all those seams out and everything. But looking forward to it. So really happy with that. The one thing I am going to do, I'm going to take a step back. We'll probably show a little bit of it in the next video. The catwalk section under the rear window. I think I mentioned it in the video when I did that piece that's in there. We put that style line in. I wasn't super happy with it. I'm still not happy with it. And after I did the sail panel and stuff, looking at it, I realized that I made a mistake in when I made that panel. I actually made it a completely straight line for the body line. And when it wraps around the car, when you give it shape, that line actually starts to go downhill, because like when you're wrapping it, it's just the way that the panel shape is in that line, it actually needs to have a little bit of a smiley face kind of shape to it. And because I just did a straight line, now standing back in the car trying to get the lines in the corner to line up, they don't line up. And I thought, I wasn't quite sure until I got the second one on, and then you stood back and you could see that the lines weren't where they needed to be. So I'm gonna have to remake that panel. I'm gonna make most of it off camera, because I think I have a good process down now. We'll show a little bit of it, but for now I just matched the line up where it was supposed to be. We basically took a radius gauge, and Mike, Steve, and I laid it on the car and drew the line where it was supposed to be. And the driver's side actually wasn't too bad. It was the passenger side that it kind of was worse on. So we kind of evened it out, stood back, made sure it was where we like it, drew that line on, and we have a line on the panel. So when I was making this passenger one, the corner piece, the style line, I was actually just matching it up with a Sharpie line where I wanted it to be, and we liked all that. So now I'm gonna take a step back, make a new catwalk section, and then cut it off, weld it in, and again, we'll show that in the next video. So not everything's perfect. We mess up, and It's hard for me, but it's not a bad thing to cut a piece off and remake it if you're not happy with it in the end. So that's all I've had for this one. Super excited that we can finally see what the car is going to look like. And now we're going to stand back and stare at it for a little while. So thanks, guys. Let me know what you think of the flow of the roof with the new sail panels in the comments down below. Thanks, guys. Catch you later.